everybody. First of all, thank you for the great organization and for having us. And as per the title, we would love to have a fireside chat together with David for giving you a little bit more background around how exciting it is, this industry. So maybe a few words on myself and Accel. Accel is a global venture capital firm investing in early stage businesses for the last 3 decades and a half, actually. We love marketplaces, both consumer focused and the B2B focused, and we've been privileged and fortunate to back great founders that have been creating large marketplaces globally. And I'm very excited to introduce you to David, which is the founder and CEO of one of the most exciting companies that we invested in Europe in the last 12 months, which is Sender.
Thank you so much. Quick introduction about myself. I'm one of, as Luca said, the co-founders of Sender. Started more or less 4 years in Berlin with a completely different business model. And the entire journey started as a university project, doing my MBA. When I did the project for the founder of BlaBlaCar, Frederick. And then this project turned into a year-long project, then moved to Berlin, thought it worked out, or I would make it happen. I tried it 1 year, failed, and then, a very difficult time started, and here we are.
As I guess many other successful company experienced before. So effectively, you started with a different business model. And I think it would be nice for the audience, maybe, given that we have many entrepreneurs here, to learn how and why did you decide to pivot, and why that happened, and how that happened, how long did it take. I think that could be very interesting, especially because I remember when we had our first conversation where you were explaining to us the Flixbus days.
Yeah, so I brought a picture that shows you how our first business model looked like. So still at university, I was thinking of offering a cross-regional same-day parcel delivery service, B2C, very complex operationally. And probably the mistakes I did is that I focused too much on theory at university, thought, that could work and it makes so much sense. So many empty capacities on buses. And so, I said, okay, let's try it. You have to try. So we moved to Berlin and we tried for 1 year. We actually had here at the bus station at the ZOB a small hub. You see the picture, and still I think have an exclusive contract with Flixbus for transporting parcels. We clearly realized it did not work. Why? No customers, no traction, operational complexity. At least back then, Flixbus was not as punctually as they are hopefully today. So we realized that was not an opportunity to pursue. And then the question was, what next? I almost gave up. I think my dad convinced me to try one more thing. And I convinced an angel investor to give me some more money. And then I took the learnings that I made throughout the year when I really understood the industry, and then started again with what today is a digital freight forwarder. And that was in August, September 2016.
Wow, okay. Quite a journey. And why this industry? Why, we've been hearing from the previous panel also a little bit more about why this industry is broken and what is really driving the innovation there, but why you feel excited to be playing in such a difficult industry?
I think because it's one of the biggest industries we have in Europe. I think I also have a representation on this. It's a 350 billion business in Europe, alone Roadfreight. It's more twice the size of the European e-travel market, and a couple of times, over 10 times the EU food delivery market. And this is a highly inefficient market. It's one of the, markets that has not been yet digitalized or optimized. And therefore, I believe there's a lot of opportunities in different segments, and we chose a very specific one. Maybe I'm going to quickly deep dive into that as well, which is full truck loads only. So within Roadfreight, the 350 billion market, we decided only to focus on full truck loads, which is the largest segment, around a third, so over 100 billion in Europe. And within full truck load market, we focus on cross-regional shipments, and then more on the regular side, on the contractual side. And this, let's say, where we think we can already today generate the biggest value for our shippers and the carriers that work with us.
Yeah, and again, going back in time, so how to start in a very old-fashioned industry, how to really begin the journey in such a difficult space where credibility is not there, where shippers and customers are not really maybe trusting you yet. So what's the secret sauce for starting in such a difficult industry?
So we were, I think, really lucky back then. As mentioned earlier, we tried to present or start with a same-day parcel delivery model. And at a certain point, we reached out to Amazon, Zalando, the two big ones that were already offering same-day parcel delivery. And we asked them, what is your pain point currently? And what they said is actually finding smaller trucks, those that you see on the bottom left, the vans, 3.5-ton trucks, that also complete cross-regional transports, because until then they only had these big trucks, the 40 tons that you see in the highway, completing this longer distances. And all the big providers, Kühne Nagel, DHL, LKW Walter, they only had these big trucks in the portfolio. So they asked us, can you do also smaller trucks? And we said, yes, of course. It was when we were pivoting, and of course back then we almost said yes to everything. And then we said yes. And then for the first 8 months of Sender, we just focused on 3.5 ton and then 7.5 tons, and did it for Notebooks Billiger, so all the same-day delivery providers here in Germany. And also in that we realized, okay, there's a much bigger opportunity in the 40-ton segment, which is a much bigger industry. But by then we had the credibility, the learnings, and also, let's say, the support of an Amazon, of a Zalando, and that allowed us to move then into the 40-ton segment, which now is over 95% of our business.
Okay, so basically great focus, being opportunistic, but also being flexible as well. And now the journey has been quite impressive. So you've been growing the business quite a lot. And usually when you grow the business fast, there's a little bit of pain points that start out with hypergrowth. So how do you manage hypergrowth? And what suggestions or advice would you give to other entrepreneurs in the room for that?
So I think the company changed significantly over the past 2 years. I think every time you double revenue, there are some processes that simply don't work, that break, that you have to fix, that you have to reinvent. And this, I think, happened a couple of times to us. I think what is super important is the team that comes with you, especially in the early stage, having a very unique team that helps you through these different phases in breaking and then making again. Yeah, so the biggest advice I can give, or my biggest learning, was having the right team from the beginning that goes through, and also bringing on early on people with expertise, know-how, industry experience to help you go through, let's say, this reinventing parts of the company on a regular basis.
Cool, makes sense. And given that you emphasize a lot about team and people, so how to manage culture effectively and how to nurture it and really maintaining a strong culture while growing and having hundreds of people, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a big challenge.
It's actually, culture is one of the things that worries me most. I'm very happy and very proud of the culture we have at Sender, but now we crossed the 200 people mark. We hired a lot of people in the past 2-3 months. In September, we opened 3 new offices in Spain, Italy, and in Poland, and suddenly it feels a complete different company. I don't remember the names of everyone. I cannot speak to everyone on a regular basis, and that makes it very, very difficult, because I think the people and the culture is what allowed us to grow so quickly and overcome all this, reinvention of the company. So what we decided is to focus a lot on culture, and we prepare. We focus. We have a few things that we use in order to shape the culture and to keep the culture. I just highlight a couple. I think everyone that starts at Sender has to go through a 2-week academy. It's a program. It's like going back to school or university, where you have different sessions, where you have quizzes, teamworks, fun activities, and we bring in everyone from different offices. I think that's already a first way for people to learn what are our values, how do we work, and have a network. It's a 2-week program, and we invest quite a lot in this, but it really already fosters friendships and really allows people to understand what Sender is before then they go into the local offices. One thing that is, I think, also quite unique is that we organize the camps, winter and summer camps. For example, last summer we moved the company 3 weeks to Italy. We had the opportunity. We gave the opportunity for everyone to come for 1 week and work from a location that we rented. And here again, the idea is to bring people out of the normal network, share rooms with people from different teams, different departments, and really have also time outside the office to bound and foster friendships. And I love always, there's a lot of our engineers, techies, that suddenly are so well connected, and a few even spend now the weekends before and after the camps with the rest of the team, and I think that makes a big difference. 2 more things. One, we focus a lot of giving our people a cool environment to work with and that's something we really invest also money to make sure that they feel at home and come with a smile to the office every day. And then early on, we also started a lot of programs for people to understand how they can grow, how they can get feedback, how they can give feedback, and so on and so forth. And I think with these elements, we're able, or hopefully, but again, it's the biggest fear I have, to scale culture across offices and many, many people.
And in terms of scaling, obviously, given that it's a large industry, there's plenty of competition. So what does it set you apart from competitors, and what are you thinking in terms of staying ahead, both from product and strategy?
So definitely our focus is what makes us different and from the other players. As mentioned earlier on the slide that I showed you, we only focus on Roadfreight, full truckloads, cross-regional, and regular shipments. This is the largest segment that we focus. What made us what allowed us to grow a bit faster, in addition to this focus, is really focusing on operational excellence, making really sure that what we're doing is better, at least a bit better than traditional players and everyone else in the market. And I think that's let's say what allowed us to grow and also allowed us to raise the 100 million that we did so far. Now it's all about building or continuing building the technology and making sure that in terms of revenue and size, we stay ahead and continue to develop that, and therefore deploy the money in a meaningful way by developing in technology and people.
And speaking about geographical expansion, what's your playbook? What's the strategy for you there, and how you're approaching new markets?
This was also a very interesting learning. So we started by having teams here in Berlin managing the market. So we had France, Italy, Spain, all managed here from Italy, from Berlin. And we realized quickly that that's very difficult in this industry. That is still a people's industry, both on the customer side, people want to see you, but also on the carrier side, these family-owned trucking companies or owner-operator need to see you. They send us, just to give you an idea, over for now Christmas season, homemade sausages and vodka. Just shows how personal this relationship is. So we realized, okay, we need to go into the countries, and this is what we did this year. And how did we do that? We tried different ways. I think the way that works best, at least for us today, is having a few people, or ideally a team that know the market, that have been operating ideally in that market already, that come, spend 3-4 months here in Berlin, go through the academy, and then understand how we operate, and then let's say relocate back to the country where they come from. And this is, for example, what we did for Spain. And to a certain extent also for Italy, where we already had a team in Berlin that we then moved out to Italy.
And again, on the playbook for expanding, you've done some partnership and joint ventures so far. So how do we approach them, and why it is important in such an industry to collaborate with established players?
So we are signed a joint venture with Poste Italiane, which is the equivalent of Deutsche Post, or the largest or mail operator and parcel operator in Italy. And what we're doing is we're taking over their food truck load business and managing it, completely in its use. So every transfer between hubs in Italy will be done by us. How did we manage? So this is definitely one of our. If you look at growth, if you look at the future, it's definitely one of the opportunities that we see, which is part of our inorganic growth strategy, carving out logistic departments of big companies that don't any longer have the expertise or the technology or the focus on something. That's what we were able to do with Poste Italiane. How we did that was also coincidence. I visited a friend over summer 18 months ago. He said, "I'm visiting the CEO of Poste Italiane. Do you want to come along?" And then just met him, started helping him out over Christmas. Then early this year, we started getting the first regular lines, and it showed that we were able to be more punctual, more competitive, had more transparency on what was going on the operation. And they just asked us, "Wouldn't you be interested in managing, let's say, the entire category?" Then it took a long time to negotiate, but there was a lot of pressure from the CEO throughout the organization to make this happen. I think speaking a little bit of Italian definitely helped, because otherwise it would have been difficult really to communicate and also to build the trust that is needed for such an organization. So going forward, let's see how this plays out. It's a big project for us, but I think that it's replicable, and it's a great opportunity for us to learn and then approach potentially other big companies that have logistic teams that maybe don't make any longer sense in the way they're set up today.
Yeah, and again, in terms of collaboration and potential partnership, going forward, what's next for Sender? So are you thinking about the next chapter in terms of growth and opportunities in front of you?
So it depends. So we have a clear goal of hitting 1 billion in revenue in the next 4 years. There's definitely the organic growth side, which is developing really, really well. We're now starting with this inorganic growth. There's a lot of also old school brokers that use one phone in the left hand and one phone in the right hand to connect trucks with shippers that have no digital processes and so on, where we see also potentially an opportunity in there, or carving out, again, logistic teams or departments from big corporation. That's the short term. But I think the one thing that excites me most, if I think about the future of Sender, is probably in 7 or 10 years, when I see first autonomous trucks coming. We can debate whether it's 7, 15 or 20 years, but what
maybe less.
Or maybe less. I think could be less, at least on the highways, long distances from highway entry to highway exit, having autonomous trucks with traditional trucks doing the last trucking mile from the highway to the warehouse, maybe on a dedicated line on the highway. Could come earlier, maybe not in Europe, but maybe on a commercial basis in the US, definitely within the next 5 to 7 years. But what excites me about this is the impact this will have on the industry. Maybe a few of you know, but it's a highly fragmented market we're operating in. 70% of all trucks are owned by companies that have fewer than 10 trucks. 70% of the capacity with very small family-owned trucking companies. Now, what will happen when autonomous trucks will come? These family-owned trucking companies will lose their reason to exist. They will not be able probably to buy a truck. They will not have to manage and hire a driver. They will not be able really to optimize cost. So they will completely phase out. And this will fundamentally change the structure of this industry. The truck manufacturers, the OEM, have to reinvent their business model. Will they just being manufacturers of the assets? Will they provide the software to run the assets? Will there be operators? Will there be full service providers such as Sender? The same applies for Kühne+Nagel and all the other players. And I think this is something that we're going to experience. It's not our kids, our grandkids. It's we are going to experience it, and we can have an impact on this. And that's why at Sender we're focusing mainly on 2 things to prepare for this era of change, which will be a transition, but we're focusing on developing the technology to operationally run autonomous trucks on one side, on the other side, building the customer relationships, getting the loads to fill these autonomous trucks. And these are the two things that we focus on right now, and this is what excites me if I look at the long-term, let's say, opportunities that we have here at Sender.
It's quite exciting. And given the audience is full of entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them if they're starting a business right now or they just started, given your experience?
So based on what I just told you about trying 1 year something that probably was completely wrong and maybe stupid is do your homework first, and really do your homework beyond just theory, assuming, saying that makes sense. Really go test it, talk to people, try it on a small scale before going in, before committing. One of my biggest learning is that once you start a startup, once you start raising money, you're locked in, and it's very difficult for you to say, okay, let me try something else. So understanding what you're going to do for the next couple of years is extremely important. So the first advice I would say for someone that is really early on in the process, really understand what you're going to get into, ideally for many, many, many years. And probably the second thing is, and getting back, because it's really my biggest learning, is get the right people on board. Get the right founders team. I would never start a company alone. I had the first co-founder that came from me from the MBA that then left and then joined by two friends that are now co-founders, and that was super important. And also the first core team, which is still completely with us, made such a big difference. So finding the right partners and then hiring the first employees is so key. And this is where maybe you have to invest a little bit, maybe give up some equity to find the right people to bring them on board, rather than to saving on equity and then struggling or not making it to the next step.
Would you change anything if you can?
Yeah, a lot of things. I would definitely don't want to go back through this very difficult time of my life when we were at the pivot. We did a lot of mistakes. I think that's part of the learning experience. A lot of things that I would do differently today. But at the end, I think it's part of the experience. It's part of who we are today. It's part of also our culture and our identity. So overall, extremely happy. But there's a lot of things that I would definitely do differently.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.